you testified that DPCI Germiston was at the scene. How is a decision made about who gets to take over a scene?
I think the person who's responsible at the scene, he either continues leading the scene up until the scene is complete, or if he's not going to continue with the scene, relevant people who must take over the scene will take it over. But when I go to...
I'm not sure I understand.
DPCI.
Sorry, witness, I am not sure I understand. Remember, in the Aeroton instance, you testified that when you arrived, there were DPCI Germiston members at the scene.
Yes.
And so you say you went directly to the 3 officers that were initially there and got a briefing with the purpose of taking over the scene. So I'm just trying to understand, in a context where there are those 3 members who initially were at the scene, there's DPCI Germiston who also have jurisdiction over the scene, and then you come in with your members. Who gets to decide who takes over the scene?
Circumstances surrounding how the scene came about.
So the circumstances surrounding how the scene came about. In this instance, the scene came about because of information by Mr. Nku.
Perhaps let me ask this. What do you mean by that?
The person
Yes.
first in attending to the scene, as I explained earlier, will deal with the scene until completion when it is completed. But in this instance, because it was drugs, DPCI needs to be in charge. I believe that's the reason why it was invited.
Yes, I understand. You are saying your testimony is that DPCI would have then been in charge. When you arrived, DPCI was at the scene. That was your testimony.
Yeah, I arrived. When I asked the members, is DPCI Germiston and Joburg, they were just standing there. Nothing was being done in respect of the scene. They were just hanging around there on the scene. So as I arrived, Sergeant Pakola, who found me, took me to Warrant Officer Pakola.
Okay. I'm not sure I understand, but hopefully as we go through the events, we will get a better sense. In this instance,
Sorry, witness I, if there are prescripts that state who is to be the lead or take the lead with regard to the crime scene, what do those prescripts say? And if someone has already been in charge, what dictates who is to take over from that person? I'm not sure that I understand what you are saying. You say, I think more than once in your statement, that you expected to take over, or that you should have taken over. We want to have a clear idea as to what informs all of that. Can you try to be clear?
Okay. Commissioner, the reason for me to go to the scene with my member was because my member received a WhatsApp notification the previous day, the Thursday night, that there is 23 bags of drugs leaving Durban coming to Gauteng. And my member, the source was informing him in respect of the inquiry dealt with by our office.
Sorry, witness. We've read that. That explains.
Yes.
That explains why, in the end, you were at the scene. That's not what I'm asking. That's not what I'm asking. A whole lot of other people would have had some basis to be at the scene. So that's not what I'm concerned with. What I want to know is what dictates who is to be in charge of the crime scene.
Personally, as I suspected the scene to be linked to my office inquiry, that's why I made the decision that I need to be briefed about everything. After then, I will take over, or I'll ask Warrant Officer Pakola to hand over the scene to me.
This may be unfair to you, but it sounds like you do not know what dictates who is to take charge of a crime scene. I've asked you twice. Ms. Boy asked you at least once. It may have been more than once, and you have not given a clear answer. Must I take it that you do not know?
Maybe, Commissioner, I'm not getting clarity of the question posed. Maybe if it could be cleared for me, Commissioner.
I will repeat it for the third time now. It is this. Your statement indicates more than once that you are the one that ought to have taken over, or rather to have been in charge once you had arrived, to have been in charge of the crime scene. The question is, what dictates or what prescript says that such and such police officer is the one to be in charge of a crime scene? What law, what prescript?
No, I'm not knowledgeable, Commissioner.
Sorry?
I'm not knowledgeable of any.
You do not know.
Yes.
That was my suspicion. The very fact that this question had to be asked 4 times between Ms. Bowe and me. Thank you.
Okay.
If I can just follow up, because I had a similar question, maybe phrased slightly differently, but it's the same in substance. When you arrive at the Aeroton scene and DPCI is already there, what authorizes you, coming from SANEP, being a SANEP team leader, to argue with General Kadwa and say it should be your scene because you have an inquiry number from 2020? Doesn't DPCI have jurisdiction or authority to deal with the scene when they are there? What authorizes you to say to them, I must take over the scene because I have an inquiry number from 2020? Is there anything that authorizes you?
Commissioner, the fact that there is existing investigation already that succumbed, that then the scene could be part of that investigation.
Leave it there, because I take it that your answer to Chair remains you're not aware of any prescript. You're not aware of any document within SAPS or DPCI or SANEP. So when Chair says prescript, he refers to an official document that regulates how things work at SAPS. You're not aware of any document or policy or instruction that says you must take over the scene.
It's mandate of DPCI that drug-related matters are dealt with by DPCI.
Yes. So your criticism of DPCI is unfair then, if they have a mandate to deal with the matter.
Commissioner, I never criticized DPCI. I was discussing with General Khan. It was not criticism. I was discussing with him.
All right.
You do when you say that without an inquiry number, that's what Commissioner Kumalo has just referred to, and I will add, and without a case number, you just didn't understand why they would be doing all the things that they did. So according to you, they either should have had an inquiry number or a case number. And because they did not have any
No.
of those, then there was everything wrong with what they were doing.
Not entirely, Commissioner.
You
My-
say no? I actually have it. I'll show you in your statement. I've underlined it, and I have a question against it. It's just that your statement is not open, but I know when I open it, I will find what I'm talking about. You do say that.
I know, Commissioner.
You know
I'm-
that you do
I'm
say.
aware.
Sorry, you know that you do say that, eh? Don't you?
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Let me read it to you. It's in paragraph 19, the fourth line. You say, Major General Kadwa told me that Germiston DPCI will deal with the scene. And I asked on what case number or inquiry number, since there was none except the one from the Pretoria office. When I attempted to talk to Major General Kadwa about the inquiry file from my office, he essentially avoided talking to me by invoking the sub's chain of command, and thus instructed me to rather address Brigadier Sekgobela instead of him directly.
Yes, Commissioner.
No, what we wanted to demonstrate is that you do say this, that they should either have an inquiry number or a case number. You've already agreed that you do say that. Yeah.
Yes. My discussion or my explanation to General Kwada in respect of that, I was bringing to his attention that Pretoria office already have an existing inquiry on same thing related to this, as there was also information which related to quantity which was suspected to come, and the one which was arrested by the members.
Thank you, Witness I. Now, I want us to deal with this inquiry because it seems to be the core basis upon which you say you asserted authority, and it's the basis upon which you then criticize other members that were there. You provided us with the cover page of the inquiry, and what we then did was to obtain the inquiry file itself. So if we can then go to page 276 of file 2, that stain exhibit file 2. 276. Now, in your explanation yesterday about what an inquiry is, you indicated that usually it's accompanied by a statement or a note of sorts that sets out the parameters of the inquiry. Is that correct?
Yes, Commissioner.
And so there is a statement, and that is at page 277. It was around August 2020 when Sergeant Masoma opened an inquiry. Now, if you go to that statement, and you'll see there it's a request to open an inquiry, you'll see it's not done by Sergeant Masoma. It's from a
Yes.
Sergeant Mokwevo. See that?
Yes, I see.
So that's paragraph 1 and even at the end. The second thing that you'll see in that explanation is that it first sets out the nature of this investigation. And it says there that this is a request, this is paragraph 5. This is a request to open inquiry for further investigations. Herein it is alleged that persons as mentioned in Annexure A committed the offense of dealing drugs heroin, also known as nyaupe. It goes on at paragraph 6 to say that there is a group of Tanzanian nationals who are currently residing in South Africa. They sell drugs, nyaupe, for personal gain and also own businesses around Gauteng, Free State, KwaZulu-Natal as a cover-up for their illegal dealings. I don't want to read the whole thing, but it also includes the people that they work with, including the fact that they rely on Uber drivers for transporting drugs. It also deals with how these drugs are brought into the country, and you will note that they come in, or the allegation was that they come in from Pakistan via Mozambique. They're transported into the country through different Southern African borders, in particular, mostly Manguzi, KZN, Komatipoort, Mpumalanga, and Bait Bridge in Limpopo. And then on the next page, it lists the targets. What you will note about this is, one, apart from the fact that the Aeroton drugs were, and what is described in this inquiry is an investigation into drugs, the type of drugs are very different. Secondly, the modus operandi is very different. This is transported through the borders of other countries. The targets are also very different. And on my reading of at least this note that summarizes what was to be investigated, it doesn't seem similar to the case or inquiry that you are talking about. Do you have a comment on that?
The only comment I'll make, Commissioner, is that information was received from a source who confirmed the package to be related to what was investigated by our office.
But
And the statement by Mukwebo, it was made by Mukwebo, but the inquiry was open to be investigated and assigned to Masomo.
Related how? Related how? This is about Pakistan, this is about different drugs and so on. This, the source, Pakistan, and through Mozambique and the other places on the east coast of our country. We are talking about something that is alleged to have come from Brazil here. And totally different drugs. So how do you say this was related to what you had been investigating already? Can you explain that?
Commissioner, the fact that the information, what is alleged, happened to be similar to what was happening.
You said
in
related.
Aeroton.
Don't keep changing. You said related.
Mm.
And I understood related to mean connected. Now you are shifting and saying similar. Please explain yourself.
I will say it's related by the fact that information received is similar to that one of Aeroton, of 23 bags, Commission.
I don't want to be rude. I almost said so what. I will not say it. You see, the distinct impression that I get is that you wanted to use the inquiry you were already involved in as a foothold for you to go to Aeroton, and getting to Aeroton, then leapfrogging everyone else who was there to then say, because I already have an inquiry, I'm not even suggesting that would have entitled you to take charge of the crime scene. But for you to then say, because I already have an inquiry that is related to what is happening here, I should take charge of the crime scene. That is what you wanted to do. That's the distinct impression I have. And yet it's clear from the facts that what you were investigating already had nothing to do whatsoever with with the drug bust at Aeroton. It had nothing to do whatsoever. You may have gotten information from the same source, but that doesn't make the two the same. Your comment?
No comment, Commissioner.
Do you accept what I say? Do you accept what I'm suggesting to you?
Pardon, Commissioner?
Do you accept what I am suggesting to you?
I hear that, Commissioner.
Do you accept it?
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Can I just raise another issue about this? You say to us in your statement that you left your office thinking, relying on Masoma, that this was the tip-off related to an open inquiry. But when you arrive at the scene in Aeroton, so you know what the inquiry is about, that Masoma falls under that inquiry number, different drugs, as has been pointed out to you now. When you arrive at the scene and you find that it is in fact cocaine, surely you know it has nothing to do with this inquiry number, different drug altogether. You get information, it came off a ship in a container. You get all of those details. You can't reasonably at that point still have thought this has anything to do with the Masoma tip-off, or more directly has anything to do with your inquiry number. You now know it's a completely different drug than the one that is covered by that inquiry. Why do you at that point still take the posture that this is your inquiry, this is your scene? Because now you know it's a completely different drug, completely different mode of getting it into this country. It came from Brazil in a ship, it doesn't come from Mozambique and Pakistan. Why do you insist it's still yours at that point?
Commissioner, by then I didn't know how it came. That came about later on.
Well, you tell us in your statement that you were taken to Warrant Officer Pakula. So you arrive with Sergeant Pakula. You know there's DPCI, Germiston and Johannesburg who got there before you. You don't speak to them. You go to Pakula of the National Intervention Investigation Unit, in fact. You go to him, he briefs you about the scene. So at that point, unless you tell us that, you didn't ask for details, then you must explain what the briefing was about with Pakula. On the assumption that Pakula told you in that short briefing, this is what we are dealing with. We found, in fact, you do describe, you said bags fell off, bags of cocaine fell off, and they put them in the van. So Pakula does tell you what they have happened upon. At that point, surely, you know different drug completely and therefore has nothing to do with your inquiry number. And the question is, with that kind of briefing, which has to be what he told you, we got a tip-off that there are drugs, cocaine coming up here. This is what we found. Pakula must have told you that when he gave you the first briefing. At that point, why do you still insist this is your scene? And this is the same inquiry number.
Commissioner Pakula, on the briefing, he briefed me about the driver and the fact that he's waiting for photographer. And I also questioned why the bags were out of the truck. I'll say that was the beginning of the briefing. It's when it was interjected by seeing the general from CI coming.
Well, you also do say that you spoke to Mashaba. So I'm struggling to understand then what briefing did you get about these drugs? If you're speaking to Sergeant Pakula, you're speaking to Warrant Officer Pakula, you're speaking to Warrant Officer Mohane, you're speaking to Chief Mashaba, you're on the scene, you speak to all four of them. how in discussing with all of those 4 people, would you still suspect that this has anything to do with your inquiry? Then what exactly were you discussing with them? Must be the question then.
No, I was not, Commissioner, maybe I don't know the understanding. I didn't discuss with all 4 of them. As I arrived, I only spoke with Pakola, the warrant, and it's when the scene I withdrew after the general came in from intelligence. Speaking with Mashaba, it was after when intention to arrest them was brought. I only spoke with him then, not when I arrived, Commissioner.
You spoke to the driver and he told you that this come from port. The driver would have told you that because you tell us in 1331, I was briefed as follows, the driver was transporting the drugs. So at that point, you would have been informed that they were being transported from where? And the point, even on this limited issue, the point I'm raising with you is that, but at this point where you are told about the driver having driven to Aeroton, you are given the story. He collected, he drove, he stopped at Yellow Jersey, and then he's here now. With all of that information, my question is, how do you still insist that this is has anything to do with your inquiry number? Without even asking what's in there. If you didn't ask that question, then you would have been the most irrational police officer on the scene to say, these are my drugs, or they relate to my inquiry, when you haven't asked what's there, or where does this come from? Those kind of basic questions. And I at this stage at least, I'm not accepting that you did not ask those questions. That would have informed you that maybe this is not, in fact, my